Scanning for audio.
Welcome to a Tin Dog podcast. Now, as I said, I'm going to be doing something a bit different this time. It's the Web of Fear watch. Now, I've not seen Web of Fear before in my life. Yes, I listened to the audios, but I listened to them such a long time ago that they're kind of not there. In the same way that, say, I read the Target novelizations when I was a kid. So as far as I'm concerned, all I know is that these are Yeti stories, they are Troughton stories, and they follow on from that business where he played two parts, the Salamander Chronicles. So if you don't mind, as the DVD's coming out, because you know how much of an anti-Apple man I am, I'm going to watch each episode and report back to you. And we'll do it one a day. So join me as we watch, for me, the first time ever, Web of Fear.
Hello, I'm Simon Fisher-Becker, aka Dora Moldovar, and you're listening to Tin Dog Podcast.
Now, episode 1. Yeah, I know this was available on Lost in Time, and you know what? Because it was one of those things I was kind of putting off, and I think I may have skipped past it. I can't really remember much beyond the first, minute and a half. Perhaps it was because the Yetis I was expecting were the Yetis from the first story. Because this is a redesign, and I'm not quite sure they're half as scary as the first lot. Now, I know they're meant to be more scary because they're less cuddly, but you know what? I kind of was looking forward to them, but that's fine. So, what we've got is an introduction section straight from Enemy of the World, which finally explains to me why the Enemy of the World came out on DVD first. You know what? I'm a bit slow. I really am. Does mean that these can probably come out as a box set later on with the special editions to encourage people with all that value-added material. Yay, VAM! But we're just talking episode 1. But you know what? The bit that threw me was the bit at the very end of the episode with the Yeti, because it's not a web of fear, it's a web of health and safety. They just turn up with their spray stuff, go, oh, I'm sorry, you can't have explosives around here, mate. Shh, there you are, all safe, everyone stand back. That's what the Yeti like. Obviously, that is a Yeti voice. That is the real Yeti voice, but back to the beginning. It's a bit confusing putting the disc in, pressing play, no extras, as you know, and then you see the glorious Troughton crew just sort of coming at you, looking like it was taped last week. It's incredibly odd as a sensation. So we've got the Enemy of the World following straight, this follows straight on from that. We've got that, that's fine, that's marvellous. And then the TARDIS kind of gets jammed and stuck in some sort of web. Now, I'm not completely sure what's going on in space, why they're stuck, why they're jammed, but I'm sure that'll either A, be ignored, or B, become completely clear later on. Was the Great Intelligence trying to drag them on? And why does the Great Intelligence use web? I can't really remember that much from the first Yeti story. I may have to go back when this is finished and listen to the reconstructions. So, onward and upwards. The BBC were asked by London Underground not to record in London Underground. So what the BBC did was they built the London Underground in a set. They built it so well, because let's face it, it basically is a bunch of corridors with repeated patterns and tessellations, that it looked real, and that London Underground kicked off and said, how dare you film on our premises without asking? Very nice. It's an ideal location. You've got interchangeable signs, so you've got instant new stations. That's what the Underground looked like in the 60s. That's what the London Underground looks like now. It's a brilliant stroke of genius. And of course, now that we've got the Matt Smith, I've got my lunchbox with the London Underground printed on the outside, and that's why they invaded now, is really nicely done. It doesn't really make sense when you take it in consideration with the first Yeti story and when that was meant to have taken place. But it's one of those things with Doctor Who. Don't look too close. Never mind the quality, feel the width. Or should that be the other way around? So, our story, episode 1, of any tale, be it a 4-parter, a 2-parter, a 1-parter, is basically the setup of the mystery. All of the other parts, part 2 to 6, is usually more deepening of the mystery and some turnarounds, where characters end up betraying others or you reveal things about them. But that's just standard narrative procedure. So basically in episode 1, it has been said, is very difficult to mess up. But here we've got something lovely. I mean, it looks glorious with the vidfire to begin with. Let's continue on. Story-wise, they arrive, and yes, of course, they split up. Oh, how marvellous. Hansel and Gretel, Jamie and Victoria, head off down the tunnel in one direction, and the Doctor heads up another tunnel in another direction to find out what's going on. The exciting world of education for the BBC, i.e. don't touch the rail because you'll be electrocuted, is ticked. Troughton's great. He really is. Everyone likes him. No one's got a bad word to say. But can you imagine, after reading bits of the biography, what would have happened if Troughton was the Doctor today? Swap places with Smith and Troughton. Then reveal that Troughton has 2 families on the go at the same time. It would be the equivalent of the News of the World headlines. The intensely private man would be, well, nobbled. He'd probably be moved on, written out, and we would have been deprived of yet another Doctor. So perhaps it isn't always for the best, from the audience's perception, to know everything that's going on. In a world of celebrity culture, we would have been deprived of our Doctor being a kids' TV show. Just consider that next time you read some scandal sheets. Anyway, we've got the Yeti wandering around, being brought back to life. How hammer horror is that opening segment? The ball through the window. You know, this stuff was made 10 years before I was even born. Well, not quite. I'm trying to knock years off my age. And it still made me jump. It's still kind of terribly atmospheric. Brilliant to engage, brilliant to watch. And I, for one, can't wait for the rest. So yeah, the business with the Yeti, and the minute you know that John Levine's inside one of the Yeti costumes, it does make you start questioning your whole concept of the show. But that's fine. There are characters here who are, well, if the invasion is the prototype unit story, this is the prototype invasion story. And of course, the pre-prototype for this would be the War Machines. Again, it's the military, it's Earthbound, it's London. And of course, coming soon, because we know these things, is Lethbridge Stewart. Oh, it's all going to be all right. Yeti in the underground. They're not exactly on the loo in Tootenbeck, but I'm sure they have to go at some point. So, I'll return tomorrow after I've watched episode 2 and report back then. So until then, be seeing you. You've been listening to the Tin Dog Podcast. Doctor Who is the property of the BBC and no infringement is intended. To contact the show or to find out more about Whostrology and my other works, click on the links on the Tin Dog Podcast homepage. Why not follow Blue Box Messiah, all one word, on Twitter to keep up to date with tour dates of my forthcoming Doctor Who comedy play. The Tin Dog Podcast is a founder member of the Doctor Who Podcast Alliance.